Do you know that Elon and Kimball have sold their business for $52 million? I was absolutely amazed.
Thanks to an old interview released by Rolling Stone in 2017, the world now believes Errol Musk was the main villain of Elon's past, the hostile husband to his mother, and the horrible parent who made his life miserable. Marked by controversies and disliked by many, Errol Musk now has just spoken out in a podcast interview, revealing unexpected truths about Elon and his mother that the world has never heard, challenging everything we've recently been told. Have we been misled all these years? And how has Errol proved all he said? Join us as we reveal the many shocking revelations Errol Musk has made. Errol and Elon's relationship. On November 15, 2017, Elon Musk had an exclusive interview with popular American pop culture magazine Rolling Stone. This discussion went viral for a variety of reasons, including Elon's perspective on his previous relationships, the reasons they failed, and his big initiatives for the future of space exploration.
Space colonization.
But while Elon's plan to send man to planet Mars in a few years was exciting to hear about, perhaps the biggest reason this interview went viral was Elon's very negative comments about his father, Errol Musk. He referred to his father as evil and hostile, claiming he was always trying to do something bad. Among the many evil things he brought up were multiple instances of domestic aggression and child neglect. He even mentioned the scandalous relationship Errol had with his stepdaughter Jana and many other negative things. Elon's statements about his father were so vile that a famous futurism journalist bluntly referred to the tech billionaire as having serious daddy issues. Many expected Errol to defend himself against these claims, but for over 7 years, he never said anything. Many thought this confirmed he was everything Elon said he was. But on November 14, 2024, Errol would come clean on a podcast episode with famous South African influencer Max G. His revelations shook the internet in many ways, giving a much different take on Elon's past and much more. So brace yourself, because this is where it gets interesting. Elon's real childhood. Errol's recent interview on podcast and Chill tells a much different story from the common narrative. It paints a more nuanced picture of Elon's past and portrays a story more complex than anything we were told. Despite the popular belief about Errol Musk being a cold and hostile parent, the old man apparently delights in his son. When asked about his current thoughts on the tech billionaire, Errol went on for several minutes talking about his son's biggest achievements with a smile on his face. He even admitted Elon was a much better businessman than he could ever dream of, excitedly pointing back to when the young man graduated college, and the first thing he did was to get a loan of almost $5 million to start his first company. Errol admitted he was against this decision at the start, believing it was too risky for a guy his age. As you would expect, Elon not only ignored his father's advice, but also proved him wrong by establishing the company and raising the total net worth to over $500 million in 3 years. Errol described this as the moment he stopped giving his son advice, believing the young man already had all it took to lead a successful life. And he was right. Still, Errol's positive impression of his son came as a huge surprise to Mac G, the host of the podcast, who, like many others, had heard the news of Elon calling him an evil and hostile person. Wanting to make things clear, he asked Errol what Elon's childhood was like, and things got even more surprising. Errol revealed that, contrary to what everyone believed, Elon wasn't bullied all the time as a child. Sure, he was a nerd who wasn't popular with the girls at school, but life wasn't all that bad either. Errol could only remember 2 instances when Elon had problems at school. The first time was when Elon was in 2nd grade, and it had a lot to do with how smart he was. Errol was busy at his office when he got a call from the school principal that Elon was misbehaving. He quickly drove to the school and asked what was happening. Soon he discovered Elon had just publicly called his teacher a stupid for making a slight error on the topic she was teaching. Errol told his son that it wasn't all right to talk to his teachers this way, but Elon still stood his ground. "But she is stupid," he would say each time his father and the teachers brought up the issue. He would then go on to state the many facts she wasn't accurate about, while also pointing out how many details in his notes and textbooks were either inaccurate, out of date, or boring. Things got so bad that most of his teachers concluded Elon was sick, even when nothing was wrong with him. So much so that Errol had to take his son to a new school to avoid further issues. The second time Errol could recall was when Elon was in 8th grade, having spent over 5 years at the school without any major problems. This long period of peace came at a time when a young boy at his school was often seen grieving his father's death. The sad story behind this came about from the bad decisions made by the person who died. And so, to make the grieving son feel better, Elon went over to the boy and openly called his deceased father an idiot for leaving him. Full of anger, the grieving boy pushed Elon down the stairs, leading to many serious injuries that kept him in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. Errol tried calling the police, but they told him his son was partially at fault. So to prevent further issues, he started making plans for Elon to transfer to another school once he recovered. He said he tried to be supportive in any way he could, believing his son had the right to live a normal life, even though he was a bit awkward. A great story of a caring father looking out for his son, but it contradicts Elon's statement of his father being evil and hostile. So what really happened? As an answer, Errol gave yet another shocking statement. According to Errol Musk, the only time he and his son had a major fallout was on May 25, 2016, and it only lasted for a few years from that moment. It was on that day he turned 70, and to celebrate the occasion, Elon came over to South Africa with a lot of friends made from Hollywood. Among these close associates were popular celebrities like Scarlett Johansson and Jennifer Lawrence, and they went out for a large dinner with Elon to celebrate his father's anniversary. They were all having a great time when one of them brought up Donald Trump, a well-known celebrity who was running for president that year. When asked who he would be voting for if he were American, Errol said he would support Trump, and Elon, who didn't like him at the time, felt embarrassed. The rest of the event felt awkward, as the rest of the night was a drawn-out debate between Errol and over 20 celebrities on who was the best candidate for president, as none of them agreed with him. This wasn't the celebration Elon had in mind, and after that moment, he began distancing himself from his father. Errol, now looking back at the situation, believes that his son was under a lot of pressure, as none of his friends agreed with his father. Also, cancel culture was slowly becoming a trend in Hollywood, and for someone who had a lot of friends, the last thing Elon wanted was to associate himself with someone who stood against the majority. So much so that he was willing to declare his father as an evil person on multiple occasions just to put enough distance between the both of them. But over the years, Elon has learned to stand on his own, so much so that he now supports the person he once hated, openly supporting him until he won the recent elections. Soon enough, they got on good terms, and in a private party held to celebrate the achievements at SpaceX, Elon happily introduced his father to the small crowd, referring to him as the one who taught him everything he knew about engineering. This was a stunning revelation by all metrics, as it went against what everybody thought for over 8 years. But if you think that was a shocking revelation, wait to hear what he said about Elon's mother, May, Errol's divorce and scandals. On December 31st, 2019, Errol's ex-wife May published a book, A Woman Makes a Plan. This book gives a very close look at her marriage to Errol, but it sheds a very negative light on her ex-husband, portraying him as both a hostile partner and a terrible parent. During the interview, Errol was asked why they got separated, and to everyone's surprise, he said he wasn't sure. Looking back at his time with May, the only problems he could think of were his tendencies to take things for granted. He recalled one night when she needed to be with him, and he shut her off by saying he was watching TV. At another time, he left her alone all by herself at a restaurant, just because he had more important business to attend to. He was a horrible partner when it came to being there for her at all times, but he was by no means hostile to her. When asked about all the violent accusations, Errol bluntly stated that she made up all the stories and allegations to get back at him. He was never the kind of person she claimed he was. Even the divorce papers came as a huge surprise to him, as they had just enjoyed a romantic night out barely a week ago. Apart from his shortcomings as a husband, the only possible cause he could think of was the new law approved in the 80s that allowed women to file for divorce over irreconcilable differences. He was sure about this because he had overheard his wife talk about it on the phone so many times when it came up. Never did he imagine she was planning to pull that on him. He never wanted to leave her, but she insisted she wanted the divorce. So in 1979, the couple got separated. Each of them moved on quickly. However, not up to 3 years after their divorce, May came with her close friend Becker to talk with him. Becker asked him to hear her out as she apologized. May wanted to get back with him, but he didn't want her anymore, especially considering the number of men she had been with within that short amount of time. Looking back now at that moment, Errol wishes he accepted her, but he still doesn't blame himself for refusing to do so. A few years later, he met his second wife, Heide Bezuidenhout. They hit off quickly and got married in 1992. She was a widow before then and had a beautiful daughter named Jana, who by effect was now his stepdaughter. They got along quite well. Not long after, Errol had 2 children with Heide before they got divorced in 2010. A few years before then, May and Errol became good friends, but he once again had to deny another request for them to get back together. This second refusal felt devastating to May, and it seemed she could never forgive him for rejecting her again. Still, she tried to move on, despite how hard it was. The last time they spoke was on Thanksgiving in 2002, not long before she made her second attempt. And since then, they never spoke. A few years after the divorce from Heide, his former stepdaughter Jana, who was in her late 20s at the time, called him for help. He got to her home and saw how she was living in horrible conditions. Her boyfriend was a bit irresponsible, and she was facing the consequences. Wanting to be of help, he bought her some new clothes and groceries before leaving. Each week he would send her some money to keep the home going until her boyfriend could get his act together. But that never happened. He even bought her a new car so she could at least drive to work without worrying about running late again. 2 years later, she called him again, saying her boyfriend had just kicked her out. He gave her directions to drive over to his place, and they stayed together for 3 weeks. By the end of the 3rd week, her ex-boyfriend called to make amends, apologizing for treating her the way he did. Wanting to make things right with her ex, she told Errol goodbye before leaving to meet him. But it was just 2 months later when she returned to Errol with strange news. Jana was pregnant, and she believed Errol was the father. He refused at first, but later decided to do a DNA test, and it turned out he was truly the father. Despite their many attempts to keep things under wraps, the news got out quickly, and the backlash was immense. Errol recalled people getting upset over the situation, but he didn't get why people made a fuss about it. Jana was no longer related to him ever since her mother's divorce, and she was 29 years old at the time. Heidi and the rest of Jana's family weren't all that concerned, as they were all confident Errol had what it took to grant their new child a comfortable life. Elon wasn't all that concerned either, as he too had his share of strange relationships. His daughters, however, were a different story. About a year after welcoming their first child, Errol built Jana a house, and then she welcomed their second child a few years later. While the world treated this relationship as any other controversy, Errol believed May was taking things personally. He had just rejected her twice after they got divorced, only to start a third family with a person young enough to be his daughter. This, according to Errol, was perhaps her biggest motivation in writing all those evil things about him. Contrary to everything she accused him of, the truth, Errol says, is that he was never hostile towards May or her children. To prove this, Errol recalled one moment when his daughters with Haida had a public discussion with the children he had with May, with one of them telling the others how lucky they were to have him as their father. As the years went by, it seemed the only reason the children joined their mother in spreading lies about him was due to how she trained them to think. He recounted the day he read the first book written by his ex-wife May, focusing more on the chapters written to paint him in a negative light. That day, he reached out to little Tosca, one of his daughters, who joined in writing that part, and asked why she did it. And she simply told him not to worry, that it was what the media wanted to hear. That way, the book would sell more copies and grab more attention. Errol said it was at that point he realized May had conditioned his daughters to think if they loved her, then they would hate their father. So much so that they wouldn't make a big deal of lying about him. They had been conditioned to think of him that way, even to the point of being casual about it. As of today, they have been divorced for over 40 years, and they haven't talked since late 2002. Elon has spoken with him on many occasions about whether he considers reuniting with her, even as close friends. But with everything she has done, Errol confesses he isn't sure how he will react the next time he sees her. As of now, however, he wishes her the best life has to offer, as getting angry over past affairs doesn't help anyone in the long run. This revelation made a lot of headlines, adding another layer of nuance to the ever-mysterious past of the Musk family. With Errol defending himself publicly in this manner, all eyes are now on May, waiting for her next course of action in the ever-unfolding saga. So, what do you think? Is Errol Musk telling the truth, or is he just trying to form a positive image? Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.